Welcome. This is the Trading Pit on July 25th here in the XC Studios. Benjamin and Amit of J Labs Digital. I am your host, Marconi White, and what a week it has been. ETH ETFs began trading Tuesday with net 106 million in inflows, and then experienced a major reversal yesterday as Grayscale ETH saw massive outflows. Will the selling continue? And is there a trade this week? We're going to find out. But first, it's rapid fire, where I look for simple answers to complex questions. Benjamin, you're up first. ETH had a 484.9 million in outflows day one, 326.9 day two, while their mini trust just picked up 61 million. Did Grayscale botch this launch?
I don't think Grayscale watched this launch, but we are seeing similarly what happened with BTC ETF launch. Grayscale didn't bother. You had constant outflows on Grayscale for the first couple of weeks, and then price stabilized, and we found a bottom, and then we started rallying. So I think they still have a lot of liabilities on the ETH side, and it's all unwinding. So it was quite expected from the Grayscale side that this is what is bound to happen.
Okay, so this was always kind of in the back of your mind. I think we talked about that as one of the major scenarios that could happen with these outflows. But man, it's tough to see. I think it was total of over 800 million in 2 days. Let's see if it continues. Amit, ETH ETFs to BTC ETF and trade volume yesterday, you had 852 million for ETH ETF, 1.1 billion, I think maybe 1.6. Are you surprised at all the amount of volume going in the ETH ETF?
A bit. I'm really surprised. To an extent, I'm surprised. Like there is so much of demand for it because we didn't see any front running before. So yeah, a bit surprising.
You think this is going to tell us that we're going to see a bullish start to this ETF, even with all the outflows coming from Grayscale?
Given the market pressure at the moment and the entire sentiment, it doesn't look like ETH is going to run from here. It will take a bit of a time for the selling outflows to stop, and then ETH trying to run around, turn the corner.
Yeah. Well, we're definitely going to get into the price action because it's looking pretty sour this morning. So yeah, maybe a run off, a good start is not in the cards. Benjamin, the S&P 500 just ended its streak of over 350 sessions and had a 2% drawdown. Are we now expecting a larger correction?
It is possible, but I think we have to wait and see. I'm not sure about S&P 500, especially because it has been running up for quite some time now. There's always all the thesis of overextension and so on. But I also want to keep in mind that dollar index basically came down back to 104 levels, and it's trading below 200 daily averages. So it's not that bad when it comes to dollar index levels for equities or risk assets. So I wouldn't count for too big of a corrections. Of course, probably we have to wait for some time before we try and bottom on equities.
Okay. So there's the trader hedging both sides of where this is going to go. I guess we're going to see. When are you expecting this to play out? Would you expect by tomorrow we get some conviction? Is it over the next couple of weeks?
We have to see where it closes tomorrow. We may get a convictive response tomorrow, but VIX is up, so this is volatility that's happening as well. So when VIX starts to sell off or finds a local top, that will be sign for all risk assets. For now, I think VIX is around 20 and above, so we have to wait on what happens to that.
All right, guys, we're going to see if I can pin him down even further than I just did, but that's something to be looking for. All right, we got one last question here. Amit, it's for you. Bitcoin hash ribbon flashes a buy signal. It's one of the indicators that some of our friends of the show are looking at, and they're basically saying it's a buy signal for Bitcoin. Are we nearing the end of the summer consolidation phase?
We were discussing this before, Bhagesh and myself. So the minor capitulation is done. There are no specific trends that are saying we're going to capitulate big time. So it might be a small correction here and there, and we might start to run up.
All right. So are you saying that this could be the end of the consolidation summer, or do we still have a couple of weeks
Yes,
left?
yes.
Oh,
I mean, with hash shipping, you have to take it with a pinch of salt. It's like it's not straight away. You cannot expect that signal it flashes by and the market will start to turn the corner. And take its own sweet time, couple of 2-3 weeks before we see anything.
okay. Pinch of salt, just like the doll I like to enjoy for lunch. All right. Well, let's actually dive into the markets and break this down. I was looking at some of the information this morning, and obviously we're seeing a correction as we speak. Last numbers I had for Bitcoin spot was 64,254. ETH had pulled back around 4.7%, approaching 5% at 3,100 roughly. Sol starting to catch up with the majors, which had already experienced the correction yesterday. It was down in the 160 range. Again, also having a 5% pullback roughly. And as I mentioned before, we started to see some other pullbacks across more equity markets. QQQ was down 3.5%, SPY down 2.2%. And then, of course, we have the Dixie at 104. So, Benjamin, I want to start with you. From a Bitcoin perspective, and as that being the leader of the market, is this just the start? Are we starting to see a bottom out? Are you seeing any signals that this is going to start to bottom out today, tomorrow? I know there's a large expiration, about 3.9 billion in notional value to expire tomorrow.
Yeah,
Are you
that
expecting
options
this to go
expiry
through
has
into August?
that options expiry has no use at all. You can forget about it. I know
Right.
everyone wants to be extremely bullish on all of those things that Max Payne is here and there and it's going to drive down the market. So unless you're seeing some negative gamma exposure at some points, there's no point in bothering about those things. Just you're seeing liquidations, buy calls on the if you're seeing long liquidation, buy calls, you'll make money. That's more than enough. Go to coin call, buy calls when you see long liquidations on BTC. You'll steadily make money. Do that on Link, you'll probably do a 2x. Don't overthink on all these, crazy Greeks, because that's how people lose money. So when it comes to Bitcoin, how I see it, I think locally over here, there is someone who's trying to absorb a lot of selling pressure, because this B you see, the B symbols that we're getting over here is as a result of a lot of order book support over here. So certainly someone is trying to absorb over here. That's why we are consolidating. And we have to see how today's US session plays out and how much more Grayscale decides to sell on the ETH side. And on the BTC side, even if I look at the overall token rating, it's not bad. It's slowly, steadily rising. It's consolidating for the past 5-6 days. I think since last Saturday till today, it's just been consolidating, but that is nothing unexpected. So it's not that bad. But if we start losing this level, I may start to worry a lot. So I can see something like, yeah, I can see something like this. So if it is really bearish, we can get something like this. And if it's not bearish, it probably goes for a test, pulls back up and starts flying up. It's very clear minor capitulation is over, even if we don't think that Ashton's buying happen will right away. We saw that the miner firm, Mara, announced that they bought 100,000 BTC for long-term holding. Like, it's been a while since I saw a mining-based news where it said, miners are buying instead of miners are selling, especially after halving, which I find it as a very good news. It's probably because of all the political narratives that's around, or they really do find good value and they're very profitable. But Mara acquiring 100,000 BTC is very good, and it sets up a very good precedent for other mining companies in the stock market as well, to acquire and post some holdings, because it will add up on their book value. So given a lot of these reasons, I think maybe we consolidate longer, but we have to really measure our bearishness. If we lose 60K, then it's game over. Then everything is open. 50K is open, 44K is open, 35K is open. We can go as deep as possible. That would also depend on what happens with macro and so on. Maybe Auntie is winning the election, so that's why we go to 44K or 30K. But otherwise, I don't see it uber bearish. I think we have to wait and see if this consolidation continues at the 64K range and this forms a bottom, then we have a true shot at 66, 67K.
What specifically are you looking for that's going to tell you we've hit this bottom? You just gave this sort of massive range of where this could go. But if we're looking for some kind of consolidation, is it simply the volume from spot to start to pick up?
No, volume will come later. I don't think it will pick up in the summer, not in a great scale at least. But I do think the level of order book supports that's coming up in places and holding up, getting into some absorption. We are also seeing stablecoin supply start to come in. There's, of course, there's this Mount Gox activity and all of that, but typically we should have fallen 20% for those type of news and fear, which doesn't seem to be the case. And we are still seeing other entities come and announce that they're buying, they're showing interest. The tide is changing, right? So short term, maybe we're pulling back down a little bit.
Yeah.
It could
But
happen. But
so are
that
you
is why
saying
I'm keeping 60K as the level. So
right?
this
But
is my primary level.
But you're saying you're really looking at the sort of these other indicators, like seeing the stablecoin flows starting to build up. You mentioned spot will happen afterwards. So are there other things you're looking at? Just is it really more some of the narrative side that you just mentioned? Mara starting to be announcing that they're buying some coins. You talked about stablecoins building up. Are there other things you're looking at to really give you confirmation that we've established that bottom?
Yeah, I think this is okay for now. Like I think we should not overthink, which is basically the problem right now. Everybody's overthinking and they're trying to figure out which one is of high probability. But guys, whether we like it or not, rate cuts are coming. Maybe it comes in September, maybe it comes in October or November. Doesn't matter. And we already know what's going on in the political agenda. We already see mining companies coming in by that.
Right.
I mean, that is significantly good news actually. So we have to actually celebrate it. And minor capitulation is over as per the hash ribbons. We're seeing a strength over there. So this correction together with equities correlation, VIX is up. So there's bound to be some fear. GDP results came in today, which was good. So there is definitely a little bit of fear on the Nasdaq side. Tech always takes a little bit of hit when GDP is in good scores. So all of that combines, and we had a crazy run up that last weekend, right? Last Friday, and we just kept going up, right, without any pullback at all. And this is the pullback that's happening. And honestly, once we broke 60K, we just went off all the way to 67, 68K. The pullbacks were very shallow. It was hard to figure out what was going on. The Trump trade that I call it as, if you look at the Trump token that I used to post in Oculus as well, that the Trump token basically retraced that whole trade, right? The pump was fully retraced because of further uncertainties that came in after that week. Now, Bitcoin is trying to catch up with that. I don't think it is going back to 53K right away. We'll have to see where it finds resistance again. If it is still finding more sellers, then we have to be worried and we can count for 50K.
Okay, Ahmed, I want to get your take. We do have a good question here from Ben, who's hiding in the shadows here, saying, is the ETF a buy the dip, sell the news? Will Bitcoin dominate this leg of the cycle over ETH? I do want to get into that, get you guys take a little bit deeper on the ETH ETF in a moment. But first, Ahmed, I want to bring you up here. Do you agree with what Benjamin just mentioned in terms of Bitcoin? Are we looking, it's just this a regular pullback that we're seeing today, maybe similar as we're seeing with equities and VIX starting to spike? Are you expecting something a little bit deeper? Is there anything else that you're seeing that's suggesting that this correction may in fact be over and it's up only from here?
I think the way I look at the market, I play ranges. I go from one range to second range. I don't take a long-term view on the market because I trade on a weekly basis. So what I'm looking at is basically, if you look at the monthly open, the quarterly open, that's sitting at around, one sec. That's sitting at around your 60 to 500. So this is where I think as far as it can go, because it has lost 200 SMA on 12-hour time frame. So if it goes down, it will go down to 6200, 62K. And from that point onwards, I'll be interested to see what the order flow is saying. But if it breaks that level, then I'll be looking at a bit lower at 60K to 56K. So that would be the range basically I'll be playing on for the BTC side. But interestingly, I was playing around with some indicators that we have in Panda Terminal, or trying to figure out the choppiness, where the market is in the chop, or there is a trend forming. If you can see on my screen, so there is an indicator by the name choppiness index that has been used in traditional finance to figure out if the market is trending or is in a chop zone. The way it is calculated is looking at the average true range for that token, and then summing it up over a period of interval to see how it has been performing with respect to the number of days. So interestingly, ETH has started to trend in opposite direction. So there is a bit of a confluence to it. The confluence being in when the Bitcoin ETF came in, it traded 17% down from the top. And now ETH, if you look at it, if it trades 17% down from the top, it will go exactly at 28,200. So this is where we last discussed and said it will go all the way up to 3,400 and go back to 2,800. So that's what I feel. So BTC going back to 62K, and from that point onwards, you have to watch and see whether it goes up. If it starts trending up, you can take a small start dipping your toe as taking small trades. If it doesn't, then you have to look at 60K or basically 56K.
Okay, still some ranges there that you can be targeting for some support. Okay, I want to take that as an opportunity to transition a little bit into this ETF launch that we just saw this week. We started the show talking about some of the initial success on day one with net inflows of 106 million despite the ETH outflows. Then yesterday we saw a lot of those outflows overwhelm coming out of Grayscale. And then we have this question here from Ben: is the ETF a buy the dip or sell the news event? Amit, what's your take on that? Given just the 2 days of data we've just seen, how are you interpreting what we're seeing? I think you're saying you're expecting this to go all the way down to 2,800.
Yep. So at the moment, if you look at it, right, it's right in the middle, from 3,500 to 3,200. So it's right in the middle. If it has to go up to 3,400, it's 300 or 3,450. It's $300 up, or if it has to go down, it's $300 down. So it's right in the middle at the moment. So if you have to take the trade, you would have taken, because I've started shorting from 3,500 onwards, thinking this will behave the way Bitcoin behaved, 17% down from the day ETF started trading. So that was the trade to be taken from 3,500 all the way back to 3,300, from 3,100, and from there see whether you want to keep it or cut 50% and then keep it riding it down to 2,800. So right now we are sitting right in the middle. So there is no trade here. So now you have to watch and see whether it takes back around 3,250. If it does 3,250 up, then you have a trade short back at 3,500. Otherwise, it's trending down to 2,800.
What would you see in terms of invalidation? You just talked about a couple of different price levels. Let's say, we saw a few more days this week of some net inflows going again 100 million or so. What do you think would be the impact on price there? Are you expecting that would give it a jolt to be able to go perhaps above that 3,500 zone? Are you expecting this choppiness to be around a while?
I think this will be around for a while. See, there is a lot of ETH out there that's going to dump. Given S&P's going lower, given there is a bit of uncertainty around the elections, how we will see the and what their take would be and how they will approach the market. So there is a bit of an uncertainty, and that might translate into basically market going downwards.
Okay. So
So
definitely not
if you have to
expecting
play,
a massive bull run above 3,500 anytime soon.
Nope. There is no bull run at the moment.
Okay.
It's ranges. I mean, see, this is what we talk about when we talk about trading. It's my style of trading. I don't look at bull run as in basically I'll be doing 100x. I look at 5% gain, 10% gain, then take another trade, and then it's compounding from my perspective. So whether it is a bull run or a bearish, I don't see the market that perspective. I play in the ranges. So if your monthly open and quarterly open is lost, I won't be longing that market. I'll be waiting for my chance for the weekly open to happen and then play from there. Get into the market slowly and start increasing the portfolio from there.
Good advice for anybody who's getting into trading, probably even some of those who've been trading a while and need to reset their perspective. Benjamin, I want to bring you back here. What was your take on how this ETF launch went? We already gave the numbers. You had the question here again from Ben asking, is the ETF a buy the dip and sell the news? What's your perspective? How did this land?
ETF, I think, as far as the flows are concerned, the volume did surprise me that it traded almost, half of what BTC traded when it did the ETF launch. So that volume did surprise me, but when we count on where that majority volume came from, which is Grayscale, it doesn't surprise then because they were relentlessly selling, right? And yeah, I mean, so as far as volume is concerned, I was still surprised that it was able to do this much. And the numbers are pretty good. Numbers aren't that bad. So it does show that there is a bit of interest. First day, my expectation was that probably 10 million net inflows or something like that. Like it's ridiculously, absurdly fails is what I expected. So I had barely any bullish expectations for the ETH ETF because I don't see a reason why anyone should buy an ETH ETF compared to buying ETH, right? You have no utility for that ETH ETF. Buying BTC and buying BTC ETF, both are somewhat similar because you don't do anything with your BTC right now, right? So you just put it in cold wallet. So it is same as going and buying a BTC ETF. So I can understand over there. But buying ETH, saying it is the computer of the world or the internet of the world or internet of the Web3 world, and then taking that internet and putting it in a box inside a 401k or whatever you call it, makes no sense, right? If you're smart enough, that's not what you would be doing. So why do you buy a useless ETH? You buy an ETH, at least that you're able to stake, at least you're able to swap it on WETH and go and buy Bonk, or no, you can't buy Bonk, but at least you can buy Pepe or buy one of these Kamala Harris tokens that's coming on base. So
are you saying you wish that they could put Pepe in their 401ks? Is that what you're arguing for?
No, I'm saying if you are so interested in ETH, it's so stupid to buy ETH ETF. Okay, so I was never bullish on ETH ETF. I was very vocal about it for a while. I do not think it will bring some crazy amount of flows in long term either. It's a good narrative. It's good to have that validation. It's good to know that it's not going to become a security. All of that are good affirmations, but ETH has no use case as an ETF. It's useless as an ETF. ETH has so much to do in the staking space as a compute cloud, whatever utilities that you want to bring for. It's a gas token.
Yeah.
So consider it that way.
Right. Yeah. So there's actually a cost of actually just going with if you understand the value of Ethereum, there's a cost with just holding the ETF versus actually having on-chain ownership where you can explore the ecosystem and get as much value as possible out of the apps and out of the DeFi ecosystem.
Yeah, I mean, at a very bare minimum, right? What is the advantage of ETH? ETH, you have the native staking yields. So if you are buying like 20, 30 or 40 ETH, you can basically go and stake it or put it on Lido or put it on any of the staking ecosystems. So buying ETH ETF, basically you're signing up for a 3 to 4% annual loss. That is what I think, right? So which means that is an incredibly bad trade. BTC ETF was not the case because BTC doesn't have a native yield model. So BTC, if you're just buying BTC or buying BTC ETF, not so much of a difference. If your perspective is about investment and you wanted to do in the proper, compliant and tax efficient way, I understand why people go for a BTC ETF. ETH ETF or Solana ETF, it makes no sense. It is mainly to go and convince some of these pension funds to put in the money over there and wait until those old people die and the fund basically swallows it. That's all happens.
First is Pepe and the 401k. Now we're waiting for people to die. Man, we got some doom and gloom today. I feel like we got some boomers here, and I'm not even that old. All right, I want to get into this other question we got from Ben. It says, will Bitcoin dominance dominate this leg of the cycle over Ethereum? Now, you just made the case while the ETF is not necessarily the best vehicle for Ethereum. But from a market perspective, what do you think of this dominance? If we look at the Bitcoin dominance chart, it's continued to rise. It's stayed very strong for a long period of time now. I feel like this entire year, in fact, it's remained strong. Do you think that the Bitcoin dominance is going to be the story for the next 6 months?
Well, one thing over there, if you notice, is that despite BTC dominance being that high, we saw so many meme coins basically get into a $1 billion market cap. We saw Solana do fantastically well. We saw a lot of new tokens launch, do well, and also crash back to their highs, back to their lows. So all of the drama still happened. So it's a little hard to say. But one thing I see is that ETH is not able to find very good strength. It's still struggling. And it's not able to outperform. The Gwei is not going nowhere. You need the mainnet products to do something, like whether it is Aave or Compound or all of these DeFi products, or you need an NFT mania that we had in the last cycle, something to come back. So when we see that activity come back, then I can think of ETH BTC basically outperforming. I've been waiting for nearly, I think, 8 months for my ETH BTC levels to get recovered, but there is no sign of it. So when it recovers, right, we can bother about it. Until then, don't bother about ETH outperforming BTC at all. What I would be bothered about is Sol, Injective, or some other tokens, or let's say tomorrow if Hyperliquid comes up with the token. These ecosystems which are actually growing natively and doing well, I'd like to rather see what happens to those. Solana, for instance, the amount of development they do is consistent. You may hate it, you may hate on how they've got funded in the first place with all the money from FTX guys, but they still at least constantly developing, doing things, right? ETH, on the other hand, it is basically becoming a Wall Street layer, which is fine. Let it be the Wall Street layer for BlackRock and bring in more and more RWA and tokenization of real world assets. Let it grow as an Aave maker and those type of things. I mean, you can literally see Maker performing better than ETH right now. I mean, not right now, but this whole few month cycle, Maker has done a good job compared to ETH. That's because of how much of their relationship with the RWA assets have been growing so far. So ETH really has to do something. It really has to do something to prove its case. And if we see ETF flows flip to much larger amounts on ETH in the coming weeks, same as what happened with Bitcoin, then ETH has a good shot. But until that happens, I really don't think anyone was expecting ETH to do crazy returns because of ETF, because otherwise we would see crazy front running. This is not the consolidation you would have seen.
I do want to get into Solana in a minute. Before we do that, I do want to ask Amit your perspective. You just heard the narrative view that Benjamin just put out there, that unless DeFi and the ecosystem of Ethereum really starts to get a jolt, really starts to see some demand, it's going to remain flat from a demand perspective. And you just talked about being able to trade the range. What is your thinking there? Does Ethereum remain, even if it doesn't get that change in the ecosystem and prices and moving, is it still a really good place to look for trades, looking for that 5 to 10% gains that you were talking about from your style?
Yeah, but to be honest, what Benjamin just said, there is no narrative for ETH, so it will be stuck in a range. If it is stuck in a range, it's easier to trade. Once the narrative comes in, then it's basically you have to gauge how much exposure you want when the market is trending. And if it is not there, then I would say it's easier to trade. So if there is secondary markets are not moving, there is no narrative happening, and if it is moving in a 5 to 7% range, I'll be happily trade ETH all the time.
All day, every day.
Because liquidity is there. Definitely, I mean it's good liquidity in, so it's easier to trade that way. And if you have a consistent range forming, and then you can play within the range, so there over the period of time you can build a confidence saying, I know how it moves, because I've been trading ETH for a very long time, since it was $80. So from that point, I have built a confidence over this token. I know how it moves. So if I'm looking at the chart, still I can basically make up my mind where it wants to move and how it wants to move. And that is coming because it's not making crazy moves.
You got the OG
Ethereum.
telling you how to trade within the range. So you're actually hoping that the narratives kind of stay cool for a while. The ETF flows don't
Exactly.
actually overdo the price.
Yeah, because
All right.
it's
Well,
easier then.
I think this is a good segue to talk about a token that is the exact opposite, which is Solana. We had some issues streaming the channel. For those who are listening, we'll definitely have a replay ready. It'll be here both on X as well as on YouTube, so you can go check it out there. Just have to bring these two videos together. But we wanted to transition out of talking about Ethereum and get into talking about Solana, which seems to be the belle of the ball this cycle, having gone away, I think, as low as $10. Now it's trading at around 160. Ahmed, I wanted to ask you, you were talking about from an Ethereum perspective, you love the range. And then if we look at Solana, it's had much larger movements. And so from a trade perspective, what are you seeing as an opportunity for Solana? And then I'm curious, before I get Benjamin's view on this, which do you see as an easier trade? Is Solana a better trade, which is going to have more volatility? Or is it easier to be looking at compounding gains using something like Ethereum, which is range bound?
If you want to compound, then Ethereum is a good bet. But if you want to make quick buck, it's easy to get into Solana because the entry is easier and you can basically, the prices is not too crazy. You can get in, and the range is basically, you have more volatility on Solana side of things. So you'll make more money on Solana. But if you want more structured trades, you go to ETH.
So talk then specifically about Solana. When you say it's easier, what are the ranges you're looking at right now that have your interest?
So at the moment, I'm looking at 165 to 148. So at the moment, it's testing the trend line on a 12-hour time frame. If it drops below that on 165, so I'm looking at from there to 148. But if it regains that, looking back at 181.
Okay, and at 181, are you looking to de-risk, or are you looking to go long? If it's able to close above that, let's say on a weekly.
No. I will take a trade here. If it retraces or may not retraces, or if it turns around from the trend line here, and it is retesting the trend line at 160, 165, and if it turns around here, I will take a trade, a small trade that will compound all the way up to 181, and then there's you cut 50% or start adding from there.
Okay. So you have a range, and I know you've talked about it going all the way down if it's not able to sustain in this range, all the way down into the 140 zone.
148. That's monthly open and quarterly open.
Okay. Kind of clear cut. Gotta like that. Benjamin, your perspective. I know we were talking offline, and I think before the stream got cut, just about the narrative for Solana. It seems to have potentially found a pretty strong product market fit. And you talked a little bit about the fact that it's a little bit isolated, which is actually a benefit to it. You want to unpack that for the audience? Your thinking there on Solana and its long-term vision?
Sure. So I'll roll back a bit and start from when Bitcoin came into picture. So Bitcoin came into picture, and you had these Bitcoin OGs who believed purely in Bitcoin, but Bit was getting clunky for transacting, and transactions used to happen a lot using Bitcoin. Then came Ethereum. It said, I can scale this whole blockchain ecosystem and we can all grow. And there was initial resistance, but a lot of OGs went on and still tested out Ethereum. They launched projects on Ethereum, they played with it, they swapped to WBTC, took on DeFi, did a lot of those things. And in this cycle, they've been playing along on the runes and stacks ecosystem and all those things. But when you see Ethereum or BTC, BTC whales never said, I will never ever touch ETH in my life. It is absolutely ridiculously useless. No, they never said that. There are always some, purists, but I was also a BTC maxi, but I do have ETH. I do trade ETH. I do work with the DeFi prime brokerages. We borrow, lend, do all of that stuff. But when it comes to Solana, post the COVID cycle, even after the FTX crash and all that, we're seeing a stream of developers and stream of users who are actually coming into the space directly on Solana, right? So they just care about Sol. They want to accumulate Sol. They want to use it, trade their meme coins or trade their games or build more features, build more products, sit on that ecosystem. because that ecosystem doesn't really need anyone else. ETH, when it started moving into DeFi, it needed WBTC to come in and save it a bit, right? Because a lot of money was sitting on BTC and people didn't want to sell their BTC to come to ETH and use DeFi. Then WBTC came in and bridged that gap. When it comes to Sol, I don't see any such requirement. Nobody is saying like, hey, we don't have a WBTC on Sol or something like that. Nobody's even caring about that. These kids who are, in their 18 or 22, 23, they come in and they're just sitting on Sol. They're buying Sol, they're holding it. It's very cheap. It's very fast to transact. And they're able to trade all of these meme coins and make money or lose money, gamble their heart out. And there's so many products that are getting built in this cycle compared to last cycle on Solana, where it was purely Rust based. And once they brought in the Ethereum languages as well over here, Solidity language acceptance as well, the ecosystem has been growing. We can see the sheer number of projects that keep constantly launching, the launch pads that have been coming up, the number of developers that have been growing, the new ideas that also keep coming up. Whereas Ethereum is basically, it's still a ghost town. Projects which launched and did well, they still have a lot of TVL. So it's still cash rich. Ethereum is cash rich, and it's becoming like a bank.
So I think to kind of laser in on what you're saying here, which is such a valuable element of Solana, is that it's almost, you could say, crypto 2.0, in that it doesn't require legacy, I would say, wealth to really start to accumulate the wealth. It's actually coming directly into that. It's finding product market fit with its meme coin environment. It's also, I know, building DeFi. I think I saw something here that its TVL recently hit an all-time high. So it's expanding quickly. Development is happening quickly. A lot of, to be fair to many of the proponents over Solana over the last 4 years, have said, hey, this is going to be a great place to build. It's going to be a great place to grow. I think a lot of old school people, be it BTC, be it Ethereum people or others, were skeptical of it. Really, from a decentralized perspective, that doesn't seem to be a hindrance to the people that are joining the network now.
And this is absolutely true. And also keep in mind, when it comes to narrative perspective, Solana was always treated as it was far easily accepted among the Western nations compared to ETH or BTC in terms of, like this perception wise. BTC, ETH, all these people will still own it because they think it is the top two coins. It's like gold and silver. That's great. But there is a different attachment to Solana. Good or bad, SPF basically created that type of a narrative that it's like your golden boys coin. And they kind of consider it as something that they can associate with. So that feeling is very different. I'm not sure how I can put words on it, but I think Solana has a very different perception as well. And it's probably not going to be treated as a store of value. I don't think that's how Solana evolves. It will be a very good cash layer. And if I'm going to be in the ecosystem and trading something in crypto or gambling or playing games, makes sense that I need ETH. I need Solana. So I don't need ETH. I'm not an investor over here. I don't need BTC because I am not building anything on it at all. And it is probably going to be diminishing gains from here. It probably does a 4x in this cycle, which is 250K maybe. So these kids are not interested in that. So Solana, they think it is going to do a 10x or a 20x. And you can make the argument that, well, why not Tia or Sei or Sui? They can also do a 10x. But where do you see anyone building anything on those things, right? Yeah. This already has an ecosystem which you are able to use hundreds of projects right there. And there's constant innovation in tooling. They are able to find a good bridge between Web 2 and Web 3.
And I would say one of the top use cases being wallets. I think many people would argue the best wallets from a UX perspective continue to be on Solana.
Yeah,
that's that's just the argument I see, and I definitely don't have all the experience there. So I'd say do your own research, figure out what you think is true. Let's talk specifically about price. I think you just made the argument for why Solana continues to get so much mind share and attention this cycle. What about price? You just heard Amit's sort of range of what he's looking at going all the way. If we can see a bounce here all the way up to about the 181, maybe start to de-risk from a position 50% out, or even start to leg up there. What is your take right now? What are you looking at from a trade perspective on Solana?
I think around 155 to 160 is a local support level that I would expect on Solana, and we have to wait and see if that holds. But I don't see the problem to be Solana right now. It just depends on BTC and ETH, which once again depends on what Grayscale wants to do. And yeah, this is the ETF launch weeks. So I don't think we have to evaluate any of these assets based on their native strength at all. It does not depend on that. It's purely based on the supply dynamics that's going on with Mt. Gox right now, the settlements that's going on there, and then the settlements, I mean, the Grayscale outflows that we are probably seeing in large volumes. On the first day of ETF launch, right, they moved $1 billion worth of ETH. Grayscale moved $1 billion worth of ETH into Coinbase Prime. So what do you expect? They moved there for staking? No, it's about dumping that $1 billion ETH. So maybe not in the same day, but they are foreseeing that, based on what happened with GBTC, on ETHE, a lot of users are going to ask for outflows and redemptions, which is why they moved 1.1 billion in advance to make it happen in advance. So they were prepared.
Yeah.
So
it's all about the flows this week and next.
freedom.
Looking at some of the majors.
It's all about the flows this week and
Okay.
next.
All right.
If you take the BTC ETF post the launch, it took a month for us to find a bottom. We did fall 17%, find a good footing, and then we went on a crazy run, because what they noticed is what the rest of the Wall Street also noticed, it is that despite a lot of Grayscale selling during that 1 month period, there was consistent inflows into the IBIT side, into Fidelity. The net flows were negative because of Grayscale, not because the others were not able to catch up. Right. So when that net flows finally slowed down, the outflows finally slowed down towards the end of the month, that's when we started to find a bottom near 38K and started to run all the way up to 74K. Which is potentially what is going to happen with ETH, provided after 3 weeks we still see good inflows on the other ETFs compared to Grayscale's version. So that is the true litmus test we have to go through, which I don't think we can predict it that well right now.
Well, we're going to be monitoring these flows over the next, obviously going forward indefinitely, but definitely over the next couple of weeks, keeping an eagle eye on them. And next week, we'll come back to see what kind of gifts they've given us, or if they've taken everything away, the market starts to flatline. Obviously, we also have the macro section, which we're not going to give too much airtime to today. But if the dollar continues to weaken, that could be some fuel that could come into this. And obviously, if we see some weakness in equities, that may have some spillover effects as well. We have one last token to talk about today, which is Bonk. And I do want to give some airtime to that. Before we do that, I want to get a sense just from you two guys. So many of the people that tune in here are sort of starting out their trading journey. We get a lot of questions through various back channels of where to buy, where to test. Amit, you were sharing earlier in this episode about the idea of being able to trade ranges and be able to compound. Amit or Benjamin, you were just talking about the fact that Solana seems to be sort of this outsized competitor for this cycle, could really get some serious returns, even at the point where it's sitting right now, which is about at 160. So I want to ask you both a question again before we get into Bonk and look at that as a levered play for Solana. What is an idea in trading that is highly overrated that you think any trader, be it a beginning trader, even intermediate trader, should reconsider? Something that they need to think about? Is it perhaps the amount of trades that they take a week? Is it using sort of heuristics to think about how they should be trading? Is it developing their own style? What do you think is something that's highly overrated but talked about all the time in trading? Ahmed, I'll start with you. Oh, you still there?
I'm just thinking. I mean, trading style is what is not talked about. You should be intraday trader or you should be a swing trader. But I don't see any of those things. The way I see it, basically, you should not be looking at whether you can take a long trade or and hold to it. You should be playing with your emotions. You should basically able to put a dot when you trade. We keep talking about between our groups saying when you start a trade, you should be able to write it down as in simple one word. This is at the trade I took. You need to have a baseline where you took the trade and why you took the trade. Because once you do that for 10 trades, then you will know where you are going wrong and then you can tweak it. But if you don't write it down, you have no base. So when you are
Mm,
starting out as a trader, it's very important to write down because that strategy might not work for you at all. But 10 trades will tell you if 10 out of 10 are wrong. So that means there is something wrong there. But if the 10 out of 5 are wrong, then you know what, you are at least true 50% of the time. All you need is 10% gains. Then you are always profitable. So it's
mm,
always about trading. When you are starting out as a trader, trade small or even go on a test net. I mean, the way I started, right? I was told to take $101 trades, and then once out of that 75 are profitable, then you can start trading with the real money. So it
mm.
took me considerable amount of time. That was 75 successive positive trades. So it took me a very long time to get to that point. Once you master that, basically what that means is you have mastered your emotions. And most of the times it's emotions that gets the best of us.
So it's a lack
And
of talking about the emotions and having the mental
yes,
game ready. And I like what you said about documenting. We had a conversation with Cole Gardner, which if you haven't checked that out already, definitely recommend listening to what he has to say. I think he said something like, if you're not journaling your trades, you're just gambling.
yeah,
And I think it's a follow on to what you just shared, which is that you really need to understand your structure and rather than just looking at the style. So I like that a lot. Benjamin, I want to bring you up here. What is one idea in trading that is highly overrated from your perspective? Don't jump
That
out
you
of the
can
gate too quickly.
buy spot once. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. We can hear you now.
Yeah. Yeah. So, like, I can buy spot and that goes 100x.
So just
So,
the
and I
perspective
make
of
all
trying
my
to
gains.
find the
So,
one uh
yeah.
the 100x investment rather than developing a skill
Yeah.
in trading.
Finding that one moonshot,
Mm,
the assumption that you can find your moonshot. I know of many traders who basically lose money trying to find that moonshot every time. They would have made like a 3x or 4x, but they wanted that 100x, and that 100x basically becomes 0x. Countless number of times because it's like a roulette, it's like a slot machine. They want you to keep trying for that 100x so that you can eventually get it, which can take 1,000 tries or 10,000 tries or one try. This is where when we see people like Ansem and or other meme coin proponents, Ansem was able to make it because of Bonk and Whiff and When, but can he do another meme coin which can do the same $1 billion move? He probably can't.
mhm.
So these one or two moonshots came very rarely, and it's great job that he was able to figure that out, whether it was fundamental or whether it was technical or whether he was a part of the cabal which was launching those tokens, and cumulatively everyone was able to push it up. We never know what basically resulted in that gain, but to assume that you'll be able to find that moonshot, yeah, not going to happen.
Stop looking for the moonshot. Start developing the skills to get the 5 to 10% on a regular basis. All right. Well, there you have it. If you're in the game and you're looking for moonshots and you're not documenting your trades, I think you have things you can start working on right now. But we're going to get into last token of the day, which is, I believe, a levered play for Solana, which is Bonk. Benjamin, you brought this up ahead of time as looking at something that maybe has a trade, maybe it doesn't. It gets a lot of attention right here on X. So, Benjamin, what are you seeing right now in Bonk? Is this a trade? Oh, you still there? You still with us?
Hello.
Oh, we lost you for a minute, but I think you're back. Okay.
Hello.
Tell us about Bonk.
Hello.
Yep.
So I
Yep.
don't think Bonk is an immediate buy yet. But I do think when Solana bottoms, Bonk is a good trade because it will perform as a beta to Solana. And it has already been seeing on the order book side a bit of supports come in. So if we still dump to 155 levels on Solana, Bonk might be a better bet compared to Solana. So you can always use Bonk as a beta to Solana or WIF as a beta to Solana. If you are degenerate, like if you're a Solana maxi, you're already degenerate. But if you want to be extra degenerate
now.
or degenerate squared or degenerate cubed, then you can use these tokens as a beta in order to do it. For the last week, I was using WIF in that manner in order to pay myself my salary, and it was working out quite well. So it's not a bad idea to look at some of these tokens such as WIF, Bonk, and these some of these few Popcat as well, and combine them to find the Sol's local bottoms and trade these tokens rather than Solana. So if you want to really optimize on your degenerate trading, these type of established meme tokens on the Solana ecosystem is a good shot.
So are you looking at the
Benjamin,
Solana Bonk trade, the Solana WIF trade, or is it are you looking at those with the stable coin pairing?
Stablecoin pairing.
Got it. Okay. Ahmed, I think you were
Benjamin,
about to jump in here.
yeah. Yep, I
Yeah.
want to jump in. When we trade Bonk or any of the meme coin for that sake, there is a way
Yeah.
of trading them. And when we talk about these meme coin, the way you trade, Benjamin, it will be really good if you can shed some light on it, basically how you trade it and how somebody should be looking at it. They are good. I mean, there is a lot of volatility in them. You can make good money, but if you don't know how to trade them, you will always lose money. And if you can shed some light on how to actually get into the trades and make some money halfway through and then basically keep running it down, that'd be really great.
Yeah. So if we go based on that, the point I said, when you think Solana is finding a bottom, it's at a support level. If there are order book good depths that's coming in, and there is a little bit of positive trade delta that also comes in on the CVD, and you want to so badly buy Sol. Okay, let's say you have like a $10,000 account. I'll go with $10,000 account because the moment I talk about millions, there are people who are a little bit intimidated because like, okay, maybe only $1 million traders can trade this type of setups. But I'm going with a very base amount. Let's say you have a 10K account and you want to trade Solana, and you want to go and open up a 1x long. You want to open up a 10K worth of Solana position because you find it as a very good support level and you want to take it. But instead, go to Bonk at that same point and check its order book pressure. And if recently it has seen bid order book pressure come in, like some buy signals like this, which is a good sign. And if Solana is also giving you a confluence, instead of taking a 10K position, just take a 3K or a 4K position, and don't take it as a singular position. Just ladder it down at least in a 3 to 4% range. Let it fill a bit because these tokens are much more volatile. They have a higher beta, right? So if you let them fill that a bit and let it ride, and when the price once again shoots back up, they recover faster. And when they recover faster, you would basically be covering the same gains you would have made with Solana with a higher amount that you would have invested in, while by using these betas to Solana, which have been functioning fine. One thing you have to keep in mind is that these betas will keep changing. You have to keep checking if the ratios are working fine. So Solana to Bonk, Solana to Wave, Solana to Popcat, you have to keep checking if these ratios are overperforming or not. So if they're not overperforming, then basically you are betting into a losing asset with respect to Solana. So that index you have to keep an eye on. And if you scale in sizes in these meme coins in that way, then you'll actually have a better shot at getting out at a good profit. The biggest advantage next to that will be the duration in the trade. If for Solana 10% to be hit, if you have to wait for 3 days or 4 days during a recovery period, on these tokens, you're probably done in hours and at a much lower size. You can reproduce the same gains. So use these reference indexes, such as Solana when it comes to these tokens. And if you were, for example, if you were trading in ETH, you want to look at Maker, you want to look at Aave as reference tokens, and those pairings need to go hand in hand so that you can try to overperform over there. That's how you can, like keep the trade for a very shorter duration and make better returns out of it.
Yeah. A lot of detail there that anyone who's looking at taking this trade, I think, can take those ideas and start to think about how they can apply them within their trading strategy. Benjamin, we talked offline about setting up an XC account and starting to trade some of this using some of the intelligence. Is that something we're going to start seeing over the next couple of weeks that we could share the data here?
Yeah, in the next couple of weeks, we'll get that rolling. So
I think it's going to be
some
exciting.
very interesting stuff. Yeah, on the on-chain side, especially, we've cracked down very interesting stuff. I do not want to break it open right now because Ben Lilly will kill me for sure. So I'm not going to open my mouth for not making a proper announcement. So I'm going to wait until he gives the green before we start sharing about it. But it's in good shape. We've been testing it. We've been demonstrating it within our team. We've been showcasing it to a few other partners. It's been fantastic. So
okay. Well, if you're interested in seeing how some of these trades play out, and perhaps we start to monitor some of the other trades that we've talked about on this show, definitely suggest you subscribe to Exchanging Good here on X. Follow at least Benjamin, who's here on X, as well as Marconi White, myself. You can also find us on YouTube. So follow us wherever we are. You're going to be able to get the content as we start to publish more information about these trades. And obviously, if you want to get more of the details, the thinking behind it, we're going to continue to have interviews. That's where you want to be able to be on YouTube, where you can listen to those long form discussions, really get more into the insights and the philosophy that people are using to approach the market from leaders in the market, including people from JLabs Digital, as well as others that we're looking to bring on very, very soon. Very excited for some of the interviews that we've had. So go check that out. But with that, we will wrap up today. We're going to be looking at the flows, seeing how they churn the rest of the week, see if we start to get some momentum or if we're just going to continue to see some pullback and consolidation. There's still a trade there. As Ahmed likes to say, playing a range is a pretty good thing to do. Ahmed, Benjamin, thank you so much for being here. Thanks everyone for joining us. And I'll leave you with my standard remarks. Keep some dry powder. You're going to want to have it. This is Marconi White signing off.